DJ Moore is great, but we're in Chicago now with two other really good receivers, target earners. This isn't Darnell Mooney anymore, or whoever was competing with. Like there was a bunch of goofballs on the depth chart after him last year. You have Keenan Allen, and that he's going like as a wide receiver 3.
Yeah.
You got number 2 draft prospect.
Who was
Odunze.
it on the Bears? Was it Equanimous St. Brown? Who was
Last
it?
year?
I don't remember.
It wasn't Mooney. Was it Mooney the year before?
No. Mooney was the number 2, but who was the number 3, number 4? Some of these seasons they blend together.
Well, yeah, we're getting up there in age, my friend. We've been around the block. Let's see here. Targets. DJ Moore, 136. Cole Kmet, 90. Darnell Mooney, 61. Roshan Johnson, 40. Tyler Scott, 32.
Oh, it
was the third most targeted receiver.
Wow.
Now that's upgraded to Odunze. Mooney's upgraded to Keenan Allen.
So you went from Mooney to Allen, and from Tyler Scott to Rome Odunze.
Yeah. So, and then there's the whole thing too of DJ Moore having to forge a connection with Caleb Williams. I think he's a fine wide receiver too. Like I could see it, but I'm going with Ayuk and the stability there. Assuming he's in San Francisco, I'm rolling the dice because the 49ers offense is just a lot better. The quarterback play, we can count on it, and we know what his role is.
This is not a betrayal of Rich. I'm just going to say it. He did DM me the next day and said, A, that was a really fun draft, and B, I love your team. So listen, when another analyst, someone else in the industry, reaches out to you cold and just says, loved your team last night, John knows that, man, that really filled me up. And I think it might have been the Ayuk pick. That might have been the the thing that sent it over. Now, Pickens is by himself in Pittsburgh. Yeah. And, you are, correct me if I'm wrong, a target share connoisseur. You really value a projected target share on August 27th. And not only can you project target share, you can also project air yard share onto Pickens. You can give him the target share and the air yard share. Now we're cooking with gas, man, right?
Well, yeah, if you look at what's happening in Pittsburgh, but the only caveat is, yeah, he should get all the targets, but look who his OC is. I mean, he's a donkey. He screwed up Drake London. He screwed up Kyle Pitts. So we have to go with the assumption of rational coaching here, and that Mike Tomlin is going to keep control of this offensive coordinator and give him some guidance in terms of who we're featuring in the passing game. What about the
idea that he was just doing the best he could with what he had at quarterback?
If you have a bad quarterback, you could still tell them and design plays to target your best players consistently.
Yeah.
If you know what you're doing on offense, which he was pretty good in Tennessee, Arthur Smith, but then he gets control of the whole thing, and it's a disaster. I mean, the talent that was there last year, and then their production. So that's my concern about George Pickens. I don't have a huge concern about that. I think that Mike Tomlin will be like, okay, we need to get 8 to 10 targets a game for him. That's the one thing we need to do, that and establish the run. And Pickens has been putting on a show in camp. So I like him as a wide receiver, 25, 26 in that range. Touchdown upside. Quarterback situation isn't bad. Like, it's not great if you're a Steeler fan, probably, because you don't know who your quarterback is really. But I mean, Russell Wilson was pretty efficient last year. If you look at his numbers, even if his reputation of his play last year was pretty bad, like everybody kind of was down on him, his numbers were actually pretty good, pretty efficient. And Justin Fields can toss it around too. I mean, he's not the second coming of anything, but he's a good backup. And if Arthur Smith is doing the right thing, which he did pepper AJ Brown with targets in Tennessee, so if he can get back to that, then Pickens will be fine.
This is the slippery slope. This is the slippery slope of coach-centric analysis. Is what you're feeling. You're feeling it. You're never feeling sure-footed when you pick the coach as the single thing that is going to maybe get you off a player or get you on a player. And speaking of, Desmond Ridder released today. Gone. So, further my point, I like Pickens, but I also like Terry McLaurin. I like a lot of these fourth-round wide receivers. Sometimes they're leaking into the third round. Sometimes you can get them in the fourth round, fifth round. Like, there's so many great receivers in these rounds, including DJ Moore. I still love DJ Moore. DJ Moore is the most durable wide receiver in the league. He is one of the most consistent wide receivers in the league. He finally has what you consider a top 12 quarterback as a thrower, potentially, right? He has, for the first time, the potential of a top 12 quarterback with passing yards or whatever passing efficiency numbers you want to use. He's never had that. The Bears have never had a 4,000-yard passer in the history of the franchise, and Caleb Williams will certainly fix that. A lot of receivers with touchdowns. Brandon Ayuk is in there. So it makes more sense than ever you look at how ADPs are slotting in to go running back in the second round. To go with a Taylor, with a Henry, with a Saquon. It's what you talked about pre-show. We talked about this. Let's get these guys. Let's forget all the running back concerns. These guys were top 5 picks in previous years. Some for the right reasons, some for the wrong reasons, but now you're drafting him for all the right reasons. And the trade-off between Olave and Pickens just isn't there. The trade-off between Ayuk and Olave just isn't there. Or even, I say Garrett Wilson. Dare I say Garrett Wilson? Because what's the big difference between Garrett Wilson and, say, Terry McLaurin? What is it, John?
Well, I would put Wilson and Marvin Harrison in that group of late first-round receivers. And I don't know what ADP you're talking, but for me it's the top 3 running backs. If you can get one of those, if you miss out on them, I'm taking best available receiver in PPR formats, especially in that first round. Then I'm coming back with a running back in the second, probably Derrick Henry, based on my rankings. And then, as you mentioned, one of my favorite strategies is to nab real-world wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 types in the middle to late rounds, because you're just getting such a discount. You're still getting 120 targets. Maybe the quarterback plays a little better, or maybe their efficiency is a little better than what people are giving them credit for. And yeah, you're getting some really good players available late, mid to late. I mean, Metcalf going in the 4th round, Deontay Johnson going in the 7th round, 8th round.
Oh,
not in
the leagues I'm in, but yes, I know that in home leagues, in just traditional fantasy leagues, 12-team leagues, you can get Deontay Johnson, 6th round in a 12-teamer. It's wild.
So
this is a true wide receiver 1 who's going to get at least 120 targets. He's the perfect skill match with Bryce Young. And I love Chris Godwin this year. I love Chris Godwin in the slot. I've always loved Chris Godwin. And they have similar games. But when you look at the target share math, I had to go Deontay Johnson at the Kings Classic in Canton. Theo and I were down to Deontay versus Godwin, and we had to go Deontay just because the John Paulson target share math was indisputable. And talking to Billy is as bullish on Derrick Henry as you are. Like, it was disorienting for me to see where we have Derrick Henry versus ADP. And at some point, you're like, hey, fuck ADP. Right? Fuck it. Right? ADP can kiss my ass. ADP can go to hell. Who cares? This is Derrick Henry. And you have some of the best in the business, Billy Muzio, John Paulson, as well as your friend from down the street who just watches the Red Zone channel, all in agreement that, hey, Derrick Henry is a great guy to draft in fantasy football this year. So guess what? I'm beaten. I'm beaten, right? I very rarely can fall for the banana in the tailpipe running back in the second round, because typically most years that guy's a Devon A-Chain type player. And I'm not falling for it. Right? And so I've had this muscle memory. But, Derrick Henry on the Ravens is new. And so you have to adjust, and you have to just throw out your previous assumptions of what you should be doing in every round and, back into it and be like, wait a second. I can get Derrick Henry, and then I can go rat-a-tat-tat, 3 wide receiver ones in a row, all the way out to who? So we know Terry McLaurin is he's rising like a helium balloon for all the right reasons. Pickens has had a great camp. People are buzzed about Pickens. We know that. Ayuk is getting settled in, 90% chance, as you mentioned. He's going to be a 49er and is going to be 15-plus fantasy points a game for Brandon Ayuk. You can pencil that in. He was going in the early second round on Underdog a couple months ago before all of this contract uncertainty came up, and now we're right back to 90% chance he's going to be with the 49ers. If you extend it out, this tier of receivers we're talking about, Deontay Johnson, and then would you consider Tank Dell to be the end of that tier? Because to me, he has more upside than either of the other Texans receivers. Those guys are typically long gone. Dell lingers for all the wrong reasons. The bias against his size and the fact that he's a second-year player. But so is Puka Nacua. Like, you think, oh, Tank Dell was a one-year wonder, but Puka's for real. Wait, what?
Yeah, initially, and I don't know where I'm at right now, this whole thing with the preseason snaps and Tank Dell not being on the field in 2 receiver sets has me a little, but it just, when CJ Stroud was asked to design a play with any receiving core in the league, he had Tank Dell as his slot guy. Like, he picked Tank Dell over every other player in the slot. So he loves him. I think he'll get there. It might not be pretty week to week. Have Diggs and Dell very close right now. But you're talking like 5th round. Like, Rashee Rice is probably not going to get suspended. And if we knew right now that Rashee Rice wasn't going to get suspended, or if we knew all summer he wasn't going to be suspended, he'd be going in the 3rd round.
That's right.
In all likelihood.
That's
so
right.
With Hollywood Brown dealing with whatever shoulder injury he's got, I think Rice is pretty safe not to get suspended this year. And as a 5th round pick right now, he really should be going in the 4th. I've got him ranked at 22. So to me, he's like in that 5th round boom. Dell's solid there as well if Rice is off the board. But yeah, this is what we're talking about with these 2nd, 3rd tier wide receiver ones that you can get this at this point, and you're still going to get 120, 130 targets, which might match what a Devontae Adams or one of these 2nd round Drake London. Like, Drake London's really overcooked for me. I like him, but he's going wide receiver 10, something like that. Yeah, that's expensive.
This is what I'm talking about. London, Olave, Garrett Wilson. You're paying top of the market prices. You're paying, all of it is baked in. All the projections are baked in. These guys have never delivered a wide receiver 1 season, and yet the projections are that they will this year. And so you have to pay top of the market. You have to pay for the full projection on a guy that's never actually delivered on those receivers. We have other receivers that have delivered in the past, and they're going a few rounds later. And what's the difference between the projection of a Drake London and the projection of a Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice, in the last month, he's up close to 20 spots on Underdog. He was going at pick 60. He's now going pick 40. Look at this chart. This is what I'm talking about. This is why you have to adjust. You have to and not think, oh, I'm going to get Rashee Rice in the 5th round. Maybe not. Now, again, in a neighborhood home league, yes.
Yeah,
you
not
absolutely.
a
In a neighborhood league, you're going to get Rashee Rice in the 5th round. Don't sweat it at all. But when you're in a competitive league, like I've been drafting in these competitive drafts, and I'm like, okay, I'm never going to get Rashee Rice because everyone's on him. Everyone's figured out. Like, the NFL's not going to suspend him. The precedent has been set with all these players suspended in the last year or two. The courts have to rule, and the player has to be handed a sentence, and then, okay, the NFL has all the information that they could possibly have. Then they can send down a judgment. Okay, you're suspended 3 games. Like, this rush to public relations, the problem that the NFL was so quick to act for 10 years. Remember, they would just snap off these suspensions. And then they had a couple incidents where, as it turns out, oh no, actually the girlfriend recants, or the friends all disappear, and the charges are dropped, or whatever it is. And then they're like, well, why did we suspend this superstar player 8 games? And law enforcement has just shuffled away. Now we're damaging our franchises that we represent unfairly. So, and don't even get me started with Deflategate and all that. But so you've seen the NFL has started taking a step back, and because we are now like a decade removed from the initial outrage over the concussion scandals and the off-field violence that you had with all these players from Ray Rice on down, right? So there's been a real leveling off of the zeal with which the NFL commissioner's office issues these suspensions. And so now we adjust. We're like, no, there's no way Rashee Rice, he's not going to be suspended until next May.
I agree with all that. Can I respond to something I saw in the chat? I saw Deontay Johnson slander from Uncle Ted, who says he doesn't get red zone targets. He had 15 touchdowns in 2020 and 2021 combined in 31 games played. Yeah, this 20-20 thing he's saying about Deontay, get out of here. He had 5 touchdowns last year with terrible quarterback play